Hey everybody, welcome back to History Student Reacts. Today we'll be watching The Greatest Speech in History, Alexander the Great and the Opis Mutiny by Epic History TV. So this is how we are capping off our series on Alexander the Great. A lot of you have recommended this speech by Alexander. I'm excited to get into it. I am a little sick right now, so excuse me if I have to clear my throat or anything during this video. Anyway, if you guys end up enjoying this one, I would appreciate it if you would check out my Patreon, which is linked down below and will give you access to exclusive reaction content. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this video. And we saw some of this during Epic History TV series on Alexander the Great, as he conquered more and more territory, a lot of it belonging to the Achaemenid Persian Empire. He adopted a lot of the customs of the Persians, which made some of his more, rough and tumble Macedonian soldiers a little upset. Alright, so the exact words aren't known like most of these cases, right? We usually don't have exact words copied down from ancient history, but we're probably getting, like they said, the essence of this real, actual moment.
What I'm about to say isn't meant to stop you returning home. As far as I care, you can go wherever you wish. But I want you to know how you have behaved towards me, and how I have treated you. I'll begin, as is right, with my father, Philip. When he found you, you were mere peasants, wearing hides, tending a few sheep on the mountain slopes, and you could barely defend them from your neighbors. Under him, you began living in cities, with good laws and customs, and he turned you from slaves into rulers over those very barbarians who used to plunder your land. He conquered most of Thrace, taking the best harbors so there was trade and prosperity, and put the mines to steady work. The Thessalians, they used to terrify you. Well, we rule them now.
Yeah, no, this is exactly right, and Alexander's father, Philip, he really set up Macedonia for the position it would be in when Alexander arrived. When he took control, Philip laid the groundwork. He rose Macedonia up to become this rather important regional power. It conquered many of these pretty prosperous Greek states.
The Athenians and Thebans, always looking for a chance to attack Macedonia, were so humbled, myself playing my small part in the war, that they no longer take tribute from Macedonia, but instead depend upon us for their protection.
Yeah, and a lot of these Grecian states, like Athens, once upon a time viewed Macedonia as a bit of a rural backwater. Now, Macedonia is the conquering state. It rules over a lot of these, like I said, more prosperous states.
My father went to the Peloponnese and put their house in order. Then he was declared supreme commander of all the Greeks for the campaign against the Persians. An honor not just for himself, but for all Macedonians. This is what my father Philip did for you. Great enough on its own. But small compared to what you've gained from me.
Yeah.
I crossed the Hellespont, even though back then the Persians still commanded the sea. I defeated the satraps of the great King Darius.
The satraps, aka sort of the governors of the Persian Empire.
Made you rulers of Ionia, Aeolis, Phrygia, and Lydia, and took Miletus by siege. The rest of the land surrendered willingly, and their wealth became yours. All the riches of Egypt and Cyrene, which I won without a fight, are yours now. Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, all belong to you. The wealth of Lydia, the treasures of Persia, the jewels of India and the Outer Sea. You are now satraps. You are generals and captains. What have I held back for myself apart from this purple cloak and diadem?
And of course, the purple cloak, purple traditionally associated with royalty, very appropriate for Alexander to have, and this is a good thing to do. I mean, look, these troops were getting antsy because they had been on campaign for years, I think about 10 years, and they wanted to go back home. They were getting sick and tired. A lot of them were thinking, what is the point of us doing this? Why are we still out here? And so Alexander is reminding them, hey, this was the point. This is what we've accomplished. This is what we've achieved together. This is what I've done for you. Reminding them why they're here.
Nothing. No man can point to my riches, only the things I hold in trust for you all. And what would I do with them anyway? I eat what you eat?
And this is another good tactic. One of the things that was making Alexander's Macedonian troops upset is that they were worried Alexander was leaving behind Macedonian culture for what they viewed as sort of luxurious and effeminate culture of the East, of the Persians. And so Alexander is saying, look, I've won all of these riches and luxuries, and I haven't kept any of them for myself. I've given them to you. I'm still here alongside you guys. Basically, I haven't changed. I haven't taken these riches for myself. I'm still fighting like all of you. A good idea, trying to relate to everybody. Telling them, this is what we've done together. This is what I've done for you. And we're all in this together.
I get no more rest than you. Many times I have spent the night on watch so that you could sleep soundly. Who among you believes he's worked harder for me than I have for him? Come on. If you've got scars, strip and show them to me.
Oh.
I'll show you mine. There isn't one part of my body, the front at least, that doesn't bear a wound.
And you notice that there isn't one part of my body, the front at least, that doesn't bear a wound. What he's saying, or what he's implying, is that his back isn't scarred. You know why? Because he doesn't run away. He charges straight at danger, and so the entire front of his body is scarred up and down, but not his back, because that would mean that he would run away, aka he's a coward. So that's an interesting little detail to include.
My body's covered in scars from every weapon you can think of. Swords, arrows, stones, clubs. All for the sake of your lives, your glory, and your wealth. And yet here I still am, leading you, as conqueror of land and sea, rivers, mountains, and the plains. We've celebrated our weddings together. Many of your children will be cousins of my own. I've paid off your debts without asking how you got them, even though you're paid well enough and pillage every city we take. Many of you wear golden crowns, badges of courage and honor given you by me.
Yeah, and this is true. Now, we've talked about some of the issues that Alexander's troops had with him, adopting some of these Persian customs, but as Alexander went eastwards and conquered the prosperous Persian Empire, a lot of his men, especially those higher ranked, your captains, your generals, etc., took some of that wealth for themselves. I mean, a lot of these men enriched themselves through looting or any number of prizes. A lot of Alexander's higher ranking men married a lot of these Persian noble women. So, a lot of these Macedonians have really moved up in the world. They've grown rich, prosperous, they've gained positions of power. And so, once again, Alexander is telling them, hey, why don't you think about all the stuff you've gotten from this? This isn't just about me, this is about all of you.
Any one of us who was killed, who met a glorious end, we buried with full honors. Many now stand immortalized by bronze statues in Macedonia. Their families are honored and pay no taxes. Under my command, not one man has been killed fleeing the enemy. And now, I wanted to send back some of you who've been wounded or crippled, or have grown old, to be welcomed back home as heroes. But since you all wish to go, then all of you, go! Go home and tell them that your king, Alexander, conqueror of the
And this is powerful. He's given them all of this stuff that he's done for them, and now he's moved into just straight up chastising them. He's saying, look, fine then, if you don't want to stick with me, then go. Flee, go back home. You know, you can go home and tell your families what you've done. I imagine if you're convinced by this speech, then at this point you'd probably feel quite ashamed.
Persians, Medes, Bactrians, and Scythians, who now rules over the Parthians, Chorasmians, and Hyrcanians as far as the Caspian Sea, who's marched over the mountains of the Hindu Kush, crossed the Oxus and Tanais rivers, even the Indus, first to cross it since Dionysus himself. I would have crossed the Hyphasis too if you hadn't cowered in fear.
Ho ho ho! Now he's really shaming them, and that's absolutely true, by the way, as we saw in Epic History's series on Alexander. He absolutely would have went even further. He wanted to go straight through into modern-day India. I mean, far beyond where he actually ended up. But his men were so sick and tired of the conquest, they wanted to go home. They'd been going for years and years and years, and so Alexander was forced to pull back. And the last of his few years were not as impressive as some of his earlier conquests, because he'd already done so much, his men wanted to sort of, take their foot off the gas. Alexander absolutely would have kept going.
Who sailed into the great sea from the mouth of the Indus, who crossed the desert of Gadrosia, where no one had ever led an army, who took Carmenia, while my fleet sailed the Persian Gulf. When you get home, you tell them that when you made it back to Susa, you abandoned him and went home, leaving him under the protection of the foreigners you'd conquered.
Wow.
Perhaps this report of yours will seem glorious in the eyes of men.
And that's a good way to play on the sort of national pride, or whatever you would call it, of these Macedonian soldiers, because a big part of this, like we talked about, is that they're a little unsure about this new Persian-style Alexander that they've been seeing over the past couple of years. And so he's telling them, fine, if you want to abandon me, go back home, and you can tell everybody that you left me under the protection of all of these foreigners that we've conquered. Why don't you do that? So that's sort of an interesting, and I imagine quite a convincing note to hit on.
And worthy in the eyes of the gods. Be gone!
How about that?
Thank you to all the Patreon support.
Alright, that was great. And yes, he died very shortly after this. We talked about this when we did the rest of the series. Alexander wanted to do further conquests in many different directions, in fact, but he died and wasn't able to. It really does make you think, what could he have done if he had lived longer? Would his men have continued to stick by him? Seems like this speech was pretty convincing to a lot of them, but we don't really know, because Alexander didn't make it that much longer. Yeah, that was a great video. I very much enjoyed Epic History TV's series on Alexander, and I think this was a pretty good way to end it. So, for now, we're done with Alexander. I think we'll definitely return to him in the future. I know there are a lot of other Alexander reactions that you guys want me to do, so I will get to them at some point. But for now, we're finished with these Epic History TV Alexander reactions. I enjoyed them a lot. Once again, apologies for I'm a little sick for today's video, but I'm trying my best to work through it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Check out the Patreon, which is linked down below. Leave any comments, leave any recommendations you have for other reactions. Anyway, I hope you guys are all having a good day today, and I will see you all again next time. Goodbye.